A number of years ago at church, during the service, the sky started to grow very, very dark and the sanctuary became very, very dim. And during the sermon, everyone's smartphone and iPhone started sounding an emergency alert. Did Apple and Google really think we were all going to bolt for the exit? The idea of getting up and leaving during the middle of a sermon was foreign to us at the time. But now, in today's world, it's an option many of us would probably welcome. Welcome to Sunday Coffee Hour. I'm Stanley Smith. Each week at Sunday Coffee Hour, we talk about everything and nothing. This week, we talked about how referring to God as she during a sermon is probably not a good way to meet us where we are. We also talked about how Callum MacLeod, one of our former ministers, would be leading the prayer service on Monday in honor of Queen Elizabeth. The readings were from at Washington National Cathedral were from Timothy and Exodus. From Timothy, it was the idea that I was formerly a blasphemer. And from Exodus, it was the idea of building an idol onto ourselves. This week, it was fun to see the prayer service from St. Giles Cathedral in Edinburgh and to see Callum presiding at the opening and closing of the service. And there were many terrific takeaways from that occasion, and not the least of it, which was the sentiment that Queen Elizabeth, although she was the head of the Church of England, she enjoyed worshiping in the Church of Scotland. They said that she appreciated the familiar form of the service. I don't think that most of us are asking for much in our church life, but familiar form is often a good place to start. As we talked at Coffee Hour, we were also shared the invitation to join at the concert, the organ concert, which followed Coffee Hour with Tom Gowans. And I received that invitation a number of weeks ago, and truth be known, an organ concert might not be my first choice to spend a Sunday afternoon, but I saw it partly as a social obligation, and I was happy enough to go, but it turned out to be so much more than I expected. I arrived early and had a chance to talk to Tom Gowans and about the Eden Church where the concert was taking place and the newly renovated sanctuary space and renovated organ. Tom explained to me that the organ actually was no great prize. It was a modest instrument at best, and he described it as an instrument that probably be most suitable as a training device for students. So my expectation level was set rather low, but it didn't matter because I was happy to be there and glad I was. But Tom surprised me because the concert was full and rich and multi-layered, and many of the pieces had multiple ranges of melody and depth and nuance which belied the fact of the modest instrument. And I was struck by the idea that even if we consider ourselves a modest instrument, sometimes we can surprise ourselves and others. Also, I was impressed by the idea that in my church life, so often music has been a transportative and meditative and such a fulfilling aspect of worship life. And probably my ignorance, I didn't realize that a lot of that has to do with the mastery and skill of the person at the keyboard. Later, we were surprised when the doors to the fellowship hall were opened to reveal a large spread, a large reception, a banquet table stretching from one end of the room to the other, filled with sandwiches and cakes and desserts and salads and all manner of things, including gelato for us to enjoy. As the afternoon wore on and casual conversations grew more substantive, we ended the day with rather adult conversations about the nature of the church and the messaging. At National Cathedral, Randy preached a sermon about 9/11 and about loss. The reading there was about the lost coin and the lost sheep. And at St. James, it was similar readings, of course, and the sermon started off with a scripture. Scripture was, I can't lead you into battle, And I can't deliver social justice, but I can give you my heart and my devotion. At St. James, they also went on to explain that the scripture quote, was actually a quote from Queen Elizabeth from one of her first Christmas messages. And they also apologize for colonialism and imperialism and white rulership in the early part of the colonies as well as Great Britain. I guess that was our dose of social justice for the day. But in our frank conversations at the Eden Church, and Eden Church was a lovely small community church with warm and welcoming people, I do indeed think they are doing the job because they're a smaller, closer knit community of people who actually are adhering to the scripture, and they've found some place to put social justice, but it's not in the pulpit. Tom and I discussed the direction of where Fourth has been, and I actually just ran into someone today who was a former member at Fourth, and they impressed upon me, and this was a young person who attended just for a short while, that his first impression was, wow, the clergy here really hates this congregation. And as we talked more about that, we talked about how the problem with social justice is it really is an idol built upon ourselves, and that'd be fine if it had a significant form that we could recognize and adhere to, but it's always changing. Scott said that's because these people really don't believe in anything, and that works for them because they can keep changing it into whatever it needs to be at the moment. Tom and I both agreed that whatever they're saying at Fourth, we wish they would just shut up. And so we could just return to a godly message, a loving message, and a scriptural message. And that's the significant form I think we can all abide by. And no one needs to be a blasphemer, and no one needs to build an idol unto themselves. If you would like to join us at Sunday Coffee Hour, I will include my email in the description of this video. I will be happy to send you an invitation. And I look forward to seeing you very, very soon.